I do believe I should be live. Right, meow. Yeah, alright, cool. I have no idea how this new setup works. Um, I'm not used to using this like way of streaming. It's like the new dashboard. But hopefully it's solid. But hey, what's up everyone? How's it going? Um, I haven't streamed in a long time, and I'm gonna play Link's Awakening. Shout outs to my channel members. You know who you are. Welcome everyone. So this isn't anything special. I didn't prepare anything. I'm literally just gonna play the game. But I appreciate all of you stopping by. Yeah, it's been a very long time. So I'm just gonna start it. But first, I want to check is my volume good? And also, I have my AC unit going in the background. Hopefully, it's not too loud. The game did come out today. I'm a bit late on that, I guess. Hey, what's up, man? How's it going? Yes, volume's good. Cool. I haven't played this yet. I know of it, but I haven't actually touched it. I just got home with the game. All right. I'm seeing a lot of positive, so we're gonna get going. There's a cutscene at the start. I'll let play because I want to see as much of this game. I do want to make a video on this game, like Easter eggs or glitches or what have you, but
Oh, thank you.
Just cause I can.
Thank you so much for that $10 donation, Huntress. I very much appreciate it. It's been so long since I heard that sound effect. That's like a nostalgia for me. I have not played this game yet. No. We are seeing this for the first time together. If you haven't seen it either, but I'm pretty sure. Oh boy, this is solid. Like this art style, like they kept to the original, but you can tell they. Man, we've had garbage Zelda cartoons, but why can't we have a good Zelda anime? Like for real. Yeah. Oh, look at that. Look at that art style. Look at that. Those graphics. What's up, Geo? How's it going? Geo, TGM is a cool guy, as you'll see in my video. Just so you guys know, I am working on a Cuphead video, but I've been slow on that, so that's gonna come out when it's done. But yeah, I love the style they went for this game, where it's like it's like their little toys almost. I think it's really cute. Look at those clouds. Look at that egg. That's some good stuff. Alright, cool. Hell yeah. Oh, you could have... Okay. You could do hero. Nice. Take twice as much damage with no heart drops for advanced players. I am not an advanced player. I know that much. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna keep it the same. I was considering naming it something stupid, but I'm gonna just keep it as Link. Hey, I know my shortcomings, and I'm not. Look at his face. It's so cute. What a relief. I thought you'd never wake up. You're tossing and turning. What, Zelda? No, my name's Marin. You must still be feeling a little woozy. You're on Koholint Island. I always thought it was a Koholint Isle, but I guess not. Follow the lane south to reach the beach where I found you. Since you washed ashore, lots of nasty monsters have been in the area, so be careful, okay? Oh, look, we got Mario.
Oh, thank you.
What's up, man?
Not much. How about you? Appreciate that $2 donation. Thank you. Thanks, Brock. Oh, we got a shield! Now, I could be a cool guy and never use my shield, like some people on the internet, but I'm gonna definitely use my shield. I mean, he's vaguely Mario-like. I will say, I don't think... Oh, look at this. Oh, he's so snappy. Like, you can actually see him lock onto the, like, directions. That's interesting. I didn't know about that. They got that tilt shifting, which makes everything look tiny, where they blur the top and the bottom of the screen. Appreciate that, Zach. Yeah, we could talk to little fox. How's it going? Can I pick him up? I can. This is mine now. Thank you. You, of course, got a good old chain chomp. Man, this looks so good. I hear that when you're running out of hearts, you better go find a big fairy. Well, I have no idea. I'm just a kid. Well, thank you, kid. I appreciate that. Oh yeah, though. We got the Tail Cave and the Taranbo Shores. Okay. Oh, he did a flip! Oh, he did a flip. It's so cute. Wait, can I push these? Oh, cool. Oh god, I should probably not stand right next to them when I do that. Something about, I didn't expect it to be like so snappy. I thought it'd be like clean animation, but it's nice. Those things always look like landmines to me, not even like creatures, just... Oh, look at the monkey. Sorry, everything's just so cute. I'm assuming, yeah. Look at his face. He's trying, looks, it's pretty heavy. You won't be able to lift it with just your bare hands. Oh, love the effect I got on that. Okay, so I think I need to be more west though for the sword. Your voice is deeper on my laptop. Your laptop might have automatic. Oh, there we go. I think I've walked right past this. It might have automatic like the bass boosted or something like that. Look who it is! It's an owl, hoot hoot. So you're the lad who owns the sword. Now I understand why the monsters are starting to act so violently. A crate. Someone say Area 51. Oh boy. Come to wake the windfish. It said that you can't leave the island until you wake the windfish. Go north to Mysterious Fortress. Forest, not fortress. What's happening? We're playing the game. Did only like 75 people show up? Something like that. It was a small crowd. It was still people. Like, I'm surprised anybody showed up, but yeah. You found your sword! It must be yours because it has your name engraved on it. Nice. So we got a nice... Got a nice spin. Okay. They can't stop all of us. That's the worst logic I've ever heard, but that's definitely what they're going for.
You doing anything Halloweenish outside of YouTube thoughts here?
Thank you for that donation. Anything outside YouTube? Well, not really. I mean, I guess I was considering... I saw this really funny snowman. This really funny snowman with like a bunch of little snowmen attacking him and blood everywhere. And I was like, oh, that'd be perfect. I want to do a pumpkin version of that. It's been a while since I actually did any pumpkin carving, and I thought that could be fun. So I might do that, but that's, I don't know, that's not all that much. My birthday is halfway through October, so I always look forward to that. But Halloweenish, it's not really. Okay, I'm sorry. Let me just... Is the game worth 60? Well, I mean, I just started playing it, so I can't really say for sure, but so far it looks amazing. What's up, Havik? Is it an actual crocodile? Like, what? His name's Sail. Welcome to Sail's house. Oh, bananas. I'm Sail, and this is my house. I did not know there was just a straight up crocodile. My hobby is collecting rare and unusual canned food. My brother's an artist. I guess strange hobbies run in the family. Okay. Interesting. Didn't expect that. Ooh, free money. Oh yeah, very good point. Yes, I do have a Discord you could join. There is also an attached Minecraft server that you can find through the Discord if that interests you. I think it's neat. I haven't been on in a bit. I actually have been playing some Minecraft on my own for free, or like for fun. Obviously, I'm gonna be doing the follow-up video. Oh, there we go. I can go up here, can't I? It's like, looked like it was hidden. I started playing RL Craft. I think that has gotten a lot of people's focus in the last couple days. If you don't know, RL Craft is just like a mod pack made by a dude. You can find it if you just look up the name, but can I? No. I was like, I want some apples. But it's just really brutal and sort of realistic and whatnot. It's fun. Super gross? No, not gross, but it's very difficult. What is my real name? My real name is Sam. Yeah. But yeah, this game is Link's Awakening. Welcome to the mysterious forest. Much of mystery you will find on this uncharted Koholint island. I'm afraid you may find it a trifle difficult to leave the island while the windfish naps. Thanks for going again. Have you ever visited the Tail Cave? I have not. Go there with the key you'll find in this forest. Cool. Stream Metro Prime 2? Oh boy, that's never gonna happen. I think Metro Prime 2 is pretty cool, but streaming it? No, probably not. I'm really interested to see, ooh, a guardian acorn. It'll reduce the damage you take by half. Oh, neato. I am curious to see what kind of glitches emerge from this game. Oh, it's the Tanuki. What's up? What's up, man? Well, raccoon, whatever. I think it was the Tanuki in the original. Maybe I'm wrong. Oh, it'd be so cool to see a... Oh, whoops. Did I play the original? Yeah. I didn't actually beat it. I don't think I ever specifically beat it, but I did. Is this death, or is this like a thing? Solid. Okay. I was unsure. Oh, get off. I was never, I mean, still not really. I'm not a super huge fan of the top-down... Get off me. The top-down Zelda games. They're good and all that. I've never been all that enthralled by them. Can you play Dark Souls? I love Dark Souls so much. I've played all the games. Dark Souls is one of the games I'm actually like sort of okay at. All right, buddy. Let's not hear it. I do want to make a glitch video on that, but it's such a hard topic because, you know, the game... It's gonna happen eventually, but the problem is I am... Can't push those. I'm fairly certain that there's a high chance the video will not perform well, and that's fine. But, what's up, Fall Out Boy Bark? The problem with making a video is that sometimes, if it's like a huge time investment and it doesn't do well, well then... I just wasted a whole bunch of time. And that sort of happened with the Sea of Thieves video. Which is, I think, a great video. You should check it out. Well, I'm just not going to attack him. Can you walk? No. I feel like... Do you think I could walk right through them? I don't think it's possible, but like... Oh boy, if only. I could have swore you could do that in the original, where you could like just barely eke by, if you're careful. I'm going to walk through here and try not to die. But we're starting to see there's a whole lot of stuff we can't really do here. We can check this out, but I don't think there's much in here that we could do. You need a shovel? Yeah. Ooh. I didn't expect this, actually. Double, toil and trouble. Toadstool makes powder for tricks. Cool. Well, I don't have that, so. The remake doesn't share any code with the original. I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. Is Dark Souls the Dark Souls of action-adventure? I would say the Dark Souls is the Dark Souls of video games. It's pretty intense. But for real, Dark Souls is fantastic, but, Ooh, what's this? A piece of power. You can feel the energy flowing through you. Rawr, I've gone mad with power. But yeah, no, it's fantastic, but like I said, I'll probably make a video eventually, but it's a big time investment. And also I have some other videos I really need to get to. Like, I've been putting it off for too long. Let's go over here. Oh, it's a big fairy the kid talked about. I still want to do the Banjo-Tooie video. That's still gonna happen eventually. I just need to get around to doing it. Yeah, I'm doing more damage. That's, yeah. And someone asked, I have played TF2. Not a lot, but I have played it. You've still got plenty of pep. Oh, okay. So this is just for healing. Okay, well, I'm back here again. Is there anything? Oh, I can't even left it if I even wanted to. It's just taunting me. Let's, can we go to the grave? Not quite. It's a little out of our ways. I know this forest is all spooky and, like, hard to navigate because of the raccoon, I believe. At least I think that's how it was in the original. I'm just walking around and stuff. Beware floors with cracks. Don't get too comfortable on them. Makes sense. Pick up the damn rupees. I literally am. Like, what do you want from me? Like, I have 44 rupees. First. Okay. Oh, okay. I can just break those. Wait, can I might be able to push those. Okay, we're good. Yeah. Open it up. Oh, look at that. 50 rupees. Nice. Oh, wait, what? I can't push that farther? Okay, whatever. Let's go exploring this way. Once you finish 2, you can try Grunty's Revenge on the GameCube. Or Game Boy. Oh, wait. Crap, let me think about this. I'm assuming I could destroy those things? I'm gonna play it safe. Oh. Nope. I can't lift it. Oh, well, crap. Is this doable? Maybe. Can't break the skulls. You're talking a little bit ahead of seeing the game. Yeah, it's because I don't have a delay on the audio. Because, you know, the capture card is delayed. It's not that big of a deal. Like, this is a pretty slow-paced game. It's not like I'm gonna reveal a jump scare or anything. But let me think. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't move them. What do you guys think? Can we do it? I feel like we can't do this. Because no matter what, like, if I push that one, like, yeah. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to come back for that. Is this a Metroidvania? Oh, I found the mushroom. I'm assuming this is for the raccoon. Or, no, I could use this for the witch. Either way. Alright, well, I think we have to go back. When is F-Zero getting his treatment? Make him into a toy! Aw, oh, crap. I didn't pick up the rupee, I'm awful. Yeah, I mean, F-Zero getting a new game would be fantastic. Wait, can you only ever push them once? Is that the thing? Because I can't push that one there. Oh, crap. Do the trading sequence, you get the boomerang from it. Oh, okay. It can't really... I know it's not a Metroidvania. It was a joke. Do you know PBG? I know of him. I know of PBG. I feel so dumb now. It's like, oh, I don't want to mess this up. I want to get out of here. Okay. I didn't trap myself. I'm fine. I was like, come on, brain blast. Okay, let me get through here. You know what, actually, what's the animation on this? That is surprisingly cute. Okay. Anyways, ooh, I like how the loading, if you look, the loading bar is a little egg. Look at that little egg. Would you call it an Easter egg? It's not, but I think it's a cute little detail in the corner there. One of the items basically a jump button? Yeah, pretty much. Alright, let's talk to him again. As I cream, my nose is very sensitive to stuff like dust and powder. Oh, okay. I have to go turn turn it into powder and then like pocket sand him in the face, and then I can go by. Right. No. Is it just a time thing? Feels like a time thing. I'm like, maybe spinning does actually speed it up. It doesn't feel faster. Fetch quest much? No, I mean, it's just gameplay. Do I get shocked if I do it with my shield? Alright, cool. We're all about science, and you gotta test those hypothesi. What's up, Sam? How's it going? A fellow Sam. A fellow intellectual. There you go. Oh, sleep powder. Okay. That's a great animation. Here it is. Take it. Thanks. Got some magic powder. Open the subscreen and set it with a thing. Oh, I got 20 of them. Pocket sand. Nice. Do you want a milkshake? Nah, I'm good. Appreciate it, though. Set things on fire? Pocket sand. I like how his eyes changed. In the original, there were 2 different enemies. Oh my god. Why did that set him on fire? I'll take it, but that's just interesting. Weird. Okay. So that's what you meant. Oh, you can see the, wait. It sort of bounces away? That's cute. I'm just gonna call everything cute, because this game's just a joy. Power piece, cool. Pocket sand. Got him. I wonder. Last thing I can remember is bitten into big juicy toadstool. Then I had the darndest dream as a raccoon. Yeah, sounds strange, but it sure was fun. I'm all tuckered out. Better set spell before I head home. Alright, buddy. That's a King of the Hill reference if you don't know. The pocket sand. Anyways, we got the mysterious key. With a very interesting handle. Will this be on YouTube? It'll be unlisted, but it'll be available through one of the live stream playlists. Whatever is like the most recent playlist. Alright, buddy. I'm just gonna whatever. I'm just gonna go. I have murder in my eyes. Oh my god. That knockback. So we got Gopanga Swamp. Can't go that way. Nope, not quite. It's a like. It's like a like. Are you serious? Got it. You thought I couldn't, but I did. It's the phone. It's the phone, Bring, hello, it's me, Illyria. Or Illyria? Whatever. Ask me anything about the island. You get lost, give me a call. Oh, this is like the hint system? There's a library in the village? Cool. Let me pick up that again. Huh. Can I pick it from the side? In the back? No. This logically belongs in the Zelda setting. Yeah, I actually really like the toy style this game has going. I think it's really cute. Danger! Keep out! Except Bow Wow. Cool. I assume I drown? Oh no, this is fine. This is fine. Got him. Anyways, we have the key. We should go back. Oh, you know what? I should check actually. So we have our items. We could check the map. Oh, that's cool. So you can see Colette Prairie. Got a bit of the swamp. All right. Oh, we could do. Wait. There's memories. Oh, I could re-listen to stuff. Okay. Seashells, not a thing yet. Talk to Marin. Oh, okay, so you can just go through that. I can do pins. Oh, nice, nice. I should be using that actually. What is it? I can do a pin. There's treasure in there. All right, cool. I guess. Oh, whoops. Wait. Can I open it? There we go. Also, there's treasure right there. It's not actual chest, but you get what I mean. Well, actually, am I silly? Is there? Yeah, I can just do a heart. I guess that makes more sense. If I'm gonna go through the effort of actually putting a pin, let's actually make the pin correct. All right. I'm sure someone's gonna be like, but there's a heart. All right, there you go. Can you play Link's Awakening on the Switch? Maybe one day. Sorry, not today though. Anyways. I am here! But first, I think we have to. Oh, Lord! There's not enough murderous intent in these chickens. Can I get some more, please? Can you don't? Okay. Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, God. Okay. What are your thoughts on Switch Lite? I am not really... Oh, wait, what? Is that like a baby? Hi. Makeup, jewels, dresses, I want it all. Some new accessories would be nice. Okay, why can this one talk and the other can't? Wait, actually, can the other one talk? I think about it. Will you stream some more of Banjo-Kazooie Jumpless? Probably not. Bark, 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 bark. Bark, bark, bark. Ride the chomp? It's not my thing. Oh, right now it's 4:57 p.m. for me. Yep, yep. All right, cool. Oh ho ho! My Bow Wow is so proud of his fine fur coat. Excuse me. What? That's a. It's a. Wait. A fine fur coat? I have many questions. Okay. Wait, is her name Madame Meow Meow? I wasn't paying attention. Oh wow, it is. Madame Meow Meow with her little bow wow. Maybe metal is considered fur? No, don't say that, because if that's fur, then what is my shield? Is my shield fur? I don't like where this is going. Okay. That raises some very tough philosophical questions. Oh, look, we got a first shell. We got a secret shell. What do you do with it? I don't know. Knights are furries? Oh god. What does it mean to pay with the iron price now? So many questions. It's a claw game. We have a lot of rupees at this point. We might be able to play the claw game. I know we want to go to the library, but I'm trying to just have some fun. It's a Yoshi toy. We should try to get that. Well, I want to try to get all of it. Trendy game, play it, yes. I did see a clip of this on Reddit, and apparently these things have super intense, intensely realistic hitboxes, so they're really hard to get. But I'm gonna try. All right. Move forward, move right. Oh, I only get 2 presses. Right, I forgot about that. Whoops. I forgot. All right, let's try again. Wait, it looks like Waluigi. I don't think he does. Does he? I'll play again. Okay. Alright, I need to move forward. Okay, that is not gonna work for anything. That's, yeah, okay. This is gonna, it's gonna take a hot second. Aw. Spent too much time trying to get the harpies earlier? Yeah. Doesn't the Yoshi help me with a trading thing? No, that's not gonna work. No? Maybe? Grab him by the nose? Don't drop him. Oh! Got him. Alright, cool. Okay, Yoshi starts the trading thing. Cool. Yeah, thought so. I want to see if I could also get that, Ah, crap. That's not gonna work. I want to see if I can get this heart piece, but it's gonna be rough. Oh. Scratch the Yoshi head. It's not Yoshi abuse, and also it's not even a real Yoshi. Alright. Oh, that's pretty spot on, I gotta say. When was the new Link's Awakening? Probably in a couple weeks. Stay in there. Stay in there. Stay in, no! Stay in there! Ah, I got it! Found a first Easter egg? Well, I mean, I don't think Yoshi's an Easter egg. What's up, Bandy? Play again? I'll give one attempt at the rupee. See if I could win back some money. Okay? No, that's too far down. I missed it. Wait a second. Am I God? Am I a God? Did I just... Am I a God gamer? I am! Ow! Alright, we're good. Oh, boy. Yeah! You got the Yoshi doll. You can't count how many games you've seen him in now. It's true. We got our money back. With the bag thing, I'm pretty sure it's more sleep powder. And we got the heart piece. Sweet. That was... that went really good. Alright, cool. Oh, yeah. This game, even the original, had a bunch of Mario stuff. You want the Yoshi doll? I've been trying to do that forever. Our mom is really desperate to have one. Hey, kid, where's your mom? Probably back at her house, the one up north with 2 doors. Well, thank you. Also want to stop at the library. I'm assuming it's one of the buildings. It's probably true. It's probably one of the buildings. Who are you? Old man? Oh, he's the one on the phone. Please call outside. Oh, he's so shy. All the kids look like me's, do they? You think so? Oh, yeah, I can see what you mean. Alright, what's this building? Is this Marin's building? Yeah, okay. Wait, oh, I just realized, actually, I wanna take another look. Mask mimics? Oh god. You can see little images, little something. Does it stand for something? It says Goomba? Probably a Goomba doll. But you can see a little picture of Marin and a little picture of Marin and not Marin. I forgot his name already. Beat Bloodstained every weekend? Oh, wow. Dang. Obviously, we have the sleeping flying rooster. Oh, Taran. Went to the forest to look for toadstools. Oh, well, no, that's... Oh, yeah, it has actual lyrics in one of the things I saw. Anyways, let's go in here. Slowly working our way through all the buildings. Okay. Hello. Welcome. See something you like, just bring it here. Alright, well, I want to buy a shovel. Don't have enough to buy a shovel. 3 hearts, okay. And then 200. Okay, well, I can get there pretty quick. I know it's possible to steal. I know what happens when you do. I don't want to do it though. Spoiler, if you steal, you get killed, and then from henceforth your name is changed to Thief. And I don't want to do that. I feel like a hobo, just like scrounging through the grass. We'll come back and get the shovel in before too long. I'm assuming this is the house he was talking about. The kids. Oh, look at the little baby. Hi. Oh, I give that Yoshi doll to my baby? Yeah, sure. Oh, thank you. You're indeed a generous person. I'll give you this in return. We got a bow, a ribbon. Maybe we could trade a ribbon for something else. Who wants... That's a lot of children. Wait, do they own... Is every child theirs? Like, is this... Those are my boys. I'm Paul. Pleased to meet you. I'll be lost in the hills. Wait. Excuse me. I'll be lost in the hills? What foreshadowing is this? Okay, whatever. You can see... Stand for something. It says Pokey. You pokey little flat biscuit. Alright. I don't like how the NPC was looking at you. Man, eye contact. Gross. Am I right? I mean, yeah. No, I can understand why it'd be a little unsettling. This has a chest in it, I think, but we can't get in there yet. Hi. How's it going? It seems after you save, you will start at the last place you saved unless it's a dungeon where you start at the entrance. I'm not sure why that is, because I'm just a kid. I always love that. Like, I don't know, I'm just a kid. By the way, I didn't actually interact with this. Can I save here? Or is this just... Is this literally just, like, for visuals? Alright, fine. I'll do a little saveroo. Savedy-doo-dah. Alright, cool. Work. Click A when it says check, you idiot. You know that was for the sign, right? Ah, there we go. I'd wish to receive a visitor carrying a ribbon on their person. I would direct them to the doghouse. Oh, right. Chow Chow wants accessories. So maybe the talking little dog will give me something. Makeup, jewels, dresses. I want it all. Ooh, trade for dog food? Sure. Lucky, here's your dog food. Fork indeed. Cool. Now, dog food. What do you do with dog food? Do you want dog food? Do you want dog food? Oh, that's right. You know that is correct. Yeah. Sale, the crocodile. Oh, this is probably the library. Wants cans, so we could go bring it to him. Ooh, this is the library. Properties of war points. No. Is this just a bunch of mechanics? I'm assuming that's what it is. Wait, was this just a atlas? Sure. Oh, cool. Well, thanks for spoiling it, game. Okay. Dark secrets and mysteries. Sure. What's this? You can't read the tiny print without the aid of a magnifying glass. Maybe if you lend some people a hand, you'll get a lens. Cool. How to handle your shield. Secrets of Whirling Blade. Well, actually, I'll check this one out. Whirling Blade technique has been handed down from generation to generation. To use it, hold down B. Oh, that's literally... Okay, that's the normal spin. Take the glasses. Maps. No, thank you. Selecting the item that's right for you. No. And fun with bombs. I'll read that, sure. After you put a bomb down, you pick it up again. You then throw it by pushing it again. You know that? Yep. Now, can I... Oh, that's right. Yeah, the Pegasus boots. Yeah. Anyways, Joseph, let's not... You don't need to tell me everything. Like, I remember some stuff from the original game. But past that, let's just have a good time, okay? Fun with guns! His side special is a gun! All good. Alrighty. Actually, we didn't go this route, did we? Before. We have the key, though, so we can check out the cave. But I do want to go visit Mr. Crocodile. Do an impression of Shrek eating cheesecake? Side special? Is it? Neutral special. Sorry, I don't play Gunman. Neutral special. Sorry, whatever. You get what I mean. He shoots sideways. I said side. For his Neutral Special, he wields a gun. I like the edit someone did of, it was that, but then for Banjo. Because he has Kazooie. Steal stuff. I refuse. Here you go. What's that you have? It's canned food. Please, for heaven's sake. Man, give that to me, please. I'm gonna lose if I can't get it. Don't. I don't suppose it would do any good to beg. Yeah, here, buddy. It's okay. Oh, okay. I'll take that. Okay. Just gonna... Alright, I think you're gonna get, like, tetanus from that, but alright. Munch, munch. That was great. Have some bananas. Bananas. Can I bring it to the Munko? Perhaps? If you steal the bow, he doesn't notice. I'm not gonna listen to you. I don't trust you. Monkey, monkey. Can I? I'm assuming I can't like hold this. Can I? Monkey. Ow. Maybe there's a different monkey. Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, we can go check out the cave. Because we unlocked that. And in the meantime, I'm going to be slowly building up enough rupees to get the shovel. The bridge. Oh, right. There's a bridge. Yeah, I'm not going to... I don't want to turn into a thief, so I'm not going to do that. By the way, I don't know about if you ever had this, but I burnt the roof of my mouth yesterday, and it's still really sore. Wait, sorry, I need to go this way. It legitimately hurts. Like, it should heal up in a day or two. But dang, that pizza was way too hot. Oh God, yeah. You've been there, right? It's rough. How's life? Life's pretty okay. I've been better. I feel pretty okay. I'm having a good time now. Hope you guys are having a good time. Those are eyes, and they're creepy. All right. Sucks to be you. Where's the cat? My cat's in the living room. She's just hanging out in front of the window. Been there. I knew you had done it before you said pizza. I did done it on pizza before you said it, yeah. Yeah, it's rough. A compass. Alright, I'm assuming I have to destroy these guys. Alright, cool. Yeah, it's been way too long since I streamed. Honestly, like, real talk, streaming tends to really wear me out, like, emotionally. I am, well, partially because I'm very much an introvert. And talking with people both scares me and also wears me out. And streaming is like sort of like that, I guess. But oh, this is fun. And plus, I need to play this game eventually to get through it in order to be able to cover it. So this is like 2 birds, 1 stone, and all that. So it works out. Spooky skeletons. That is. I don't have any bombs. I wonder if I could like scare them into. Oh, the corner works. I was gonna say, can I scare them into? I want to like see if I can. Wait. Haha! There you go. Sans from Understale. Yeah, you can spin attack. Oh yeah, I guess that's true. Da, 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 da. I killed Sans and Papyrus. Oh, creepy. I do have a key, so I could go that way, but let's check out this. Is this electric? Well, I didn't get shocked, but that definitely hurt. Okay, whoops. Whoops. Are you gonna do a Minecraft Let's Play? I mean, actually, if I feel like it, I'm not gonna promise anything, okay? I make too many promises and then I don't keep them and I feel bad. So I'll say no, but I'm not opposed to doing something Minecraft. Like I said, I have been enjoying RL crafts. We have those 2 doors. We have a bombable there. Oh, there we go. Okay, well, let's go this one. Well, wait, we can't go that. So Let's do this one first. I've been enjoying RLCraft. I could see that being a thing I could stream. But then again, streaming Minecraft is one of those things where it's such a time commitment in order to actually get anything done, and people get bored of it real quick. But more likely, oh boy, than not, I would get bored of it. So I don't know. But streaming in general, it's cool. I like it. It's nice. This beakless statue is saying something. You can't make it out. Okay, well I need to get the beak for it, I guess. So we'll look around for that. Oh god, I almost got out of there without taking damage. Not quite. When do you get to buy bombs anyways? I don't know. But I'll get them eventually. Obviously, eventually. Oh, look at that! A chest. Do I have to read the chat? Yeah. I tried to. Alarm clock? What, because of the beeping? Money! Alright, cool. Oh, actually, think about it. Can I? Let's try this. Nope. I don't think so. Wait, did I miss anything in the previous? No. Well, actually, I didn't go that way. I can't exactly go backwards this route. Get the pizza out of the oven. No, it's too hot. I don't want to burn myself. What? Oh, wait, what? I didn't realize he was walking that way. Oh, boy. Oh, I assume I have to match them? Ah, crap. He was a little too far away, and I swiped a little late. There we go. Ah, hearts. Thank you. A beak! Find an owl statue to fit it into. Here. Turn aside the spinned ones with the shield. Turn aside the spinned ones. The spinned ones. That's good to know. Ow. Those are not the spinned ones. They are the hurt ones. The spined ones? Oh. Spined? Yeah, I'm an idiot. that makes a lot more sense. Whatever. Now I spin spine. Talk about spinies. Oh yeah, sure. That makes sense. Got him. Okay, that was a whole lot of nothing. The spindly ones. Alright, we can go this way. We never went through this room. Okay, cool. Alright, so... we have the beak, so we can go talk to him. We can't jump across that. So, yeah, we'll go up and talk to the owl. Why are there so many Mario references? There's Star. Do you know Soy Puns? Yeah. Yeah, he's cool. It's actually a Mario game disguised as a Zelda game? Oh. Oh, he figured it out. Oh, God. Alright. Kaka. If there is a door that you can't open, move a square block. Oh. Look at that. Thank you. Turn aside. Oh, that's what they meant. Okay, cool. That makes a lot. I mean, I probably would have done that anyways, but that makes a lot of sense. Da-da-da. Tell me. Oh, secret owl. Oh. Come on. Why would you tell me this ending twice? Why did you go through all that effort? Oh, whatever. Ah, it's 2D. Look at it. Ah! Look at those Goombas. I love the 2D sections. This looks so good. I was trying to see if his like facial animation would change. Is there a jump? No. No, we have to get the rock. Is it the rock's feather? I want that. I'm on it. Oh, look at that! It's a rogue's feather. That is a feather. Ow! I still jumped into it. Yeah, I got the jump button. This. The effect is pretty weird. Oh, look at that! Look, you can maintain your turnedness. You can jump backwards. Whoop. Oh wait, actually, can I do anything with that? I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of glitch. You have backward long jump. Just do it. That is a nice old jump. Oh, I can attack midair? Nice. I don't think that was in the original. I don't think you could do that. Yeah, I doubt I'm gonna find anything, but it'd be cool if I could. Can I jump over these? I cannot. I can unlock this. Wait. Yeah, this is just a single chest. And then we'll go to the right. I'm not gonna shout you out. Stop asking. Seriously. Can I jump in the fire? No. I got the boss key. Ooh, it's a nightmare key, actually. The nightmare layer. That is scary. You just kept jumping. Bah, bah, bah. Ow. I totally misjudged that. Ow. I totally misjudged that. Ow. I totally misjudged that. I should stop. Take a damage. He's so goopy. Ah. Ah. Yeah, let's go in here first. See what's down here. Is that a skeleton? That is a lot darker than I thought I'd see in here. Oh, look, you can swipe up and down. Oh my god, he's Lucina. He's Lucina. Can I? Oh, look at that. You can do a spin midair. Oh, you can look in all the directions. Okay, that's cool. I want to try something. So, he holds the direction when you start the spin until you let go. If you press up while jumping, he's back to ready again. That's neat. Oh wait, crap. I should look around. I think it's everything. We'll go through. That's not a glitch. That's just how the game works. Oh, it's the burger. Hey, Burgie. Buzz, buzz, outsider. It's Moldorm, the burger. Burgerton. Oh, spin attack? Oh, that's a good point. Let's try that. Spinning! That's a good trick! Oh, crap. Oh, damn it. No! I am still a burger! Alright. Did I really just miss that? Oh, I could jump over him, can't I? Assuming I'm not bad. I really don't want to die here. I feel dumb. Okay, cool. I'm an idiot. Let's do that again. That timing. I wasn't trying to make a funny meme. I was legitimately trying to not die there, and I straight up died there. Ow. Now Martin's a seagull. Is it a seagull? Wait, what? Did she turn into a seagull? I'm not aware of that lore. He sounds like a vacuum. Lucy would be terrified right now. Nope. Oh my god, are you serious? Oh my god, what are you trying to juke me out? Like what is this? There.
Easter egg.
It's a burger bun with spa gel on. Oh, gross. I don't like that at all. Fur container, sweet. Look at it! It's a cello. Violin. Oh, no, I was right the first time. It's a cello. Sweet. I was like, that's pretty, that's like the size of his body, so it must be a cello. Can I free play this? Can I play Freebird? Can I play Through the Fire and the Flames? Can I play Old MacDonald Had a Farm? One of those. Swamp! Cool. Thanks, game. A path opens in the blooms! Giorno's theme. A cello that produces a pure, clear sound. Oh, cutscene started. Owl Man. I actually don't know what Giorno's theme is, to be honest. Instrument of the Sirens. I have to admit, at first I didn't believe you were real. The instrument, along with the 7 others in the set, has the power to wake the windfish. You must collect them all. I was instructed to give you directions. Your next goal is the swamp. Yep. Boing boing. I'm assuming I could jump up ledges and across these. Nothing over here? Okay. I got a little too close there. Can I jump up these? I can't? Okay. Is it on PC? No, just Switch. You'd think. Oh boy, okay. Hey buddy, it's serious here, we're serious! The Moblins came to the village! That's right, a whole gang of Moblins! And for real, they just went to the house! Yeah, they went to something at the Bow House! Real bad scene! It's a bad scene! Alright, cool, well, that sucks. I'm gonna go check out the library. You'd think with the jump I'd be able to reach it. Like, I'm right up there. Give me the book! But you can't, and that's unfortunate. Alrighty, let's go over here. Aye! It's terrible, my Bow Wow was dog-napped by Moblins! Oh, please, somebody help me, poor Bow Wow. Okay. Anyways, what's over here? Can we go in here? That is just a piece of heart. Sweet. I'll take that. Can you pull Old Town Road? Definitely. How much money do I have? Not quite enough. It's a real sad time right now. Try taking a nap. Did I just overwrite the I still need some more rupees before I can get the shovel. Actually, can I play the can I play the minigame? Hey, what's up, Private? How's it going? Can I play? Oh, look at the Bow Wow! Why do you have the Bow Wow? Trendy game! I know that's not Bow Wow, but, anyways. How long will I be streaming? A couple hours. I don't know. Alright, let's see if I can do this. Okay, well that was not what I meant to do at all. I know that's... The bag, I'm pretty sure the bag is more sleep powder. Oh boy, this minigame. Yeah, I was doing pretty good earlier. I want... Okay, yes, I will. I'll play a few times. I'm gonna run through my money, but I want this, so... Move right. I pressed the wrong button last time. Okay, that's pretty good. It's a ball, so it might roll out. Come on, Chow Chow. Solid. Stay in there. Stay. Stay. And we're good. Alright, cool. One more time. Yeah. No, I think that's a little too far to the left, but... Okay, I think it's just not gonna work. Oh! 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 Oh, no! The physics! Let's try that again. Alright. Okay. It's already on its side. That might help out. Oh, bounce in there! Oh, come on! Oh, come on, it's right there! Are you kidding me? Just kidding, I'm a god. Alright, we got it. I got the heart piece stuck on the purple ruby earlier. Oh boy. Alright, let's see if I get the money just to get a little something back. Nope, that's way too far down. That's not gonna work. Oh, I did knock it over, so that's something. Oh well, I'm not gonna bother. I don't like Link's hands? What? Or whenever the mood strikes your play. Alright, well. A secret seashell. Got that. And Chow figure. Oh, it's a figure. Okay. Cool. I thought that was the actual thing. Link's hands. Are you wanna fight? You started this, or did I start this? I didn't mean to hit it. Like, I was trying to attack that stuff. No, 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 wait! Oh, I started it? My bad. I was like, yeah. Like, I bumped into them. I was like, what? You pushing me? So that's awkward. Alright. You can visibly see his hands hit the buttons. Is it gonna hate me forever? Is it just... It's good that I didn't kill it, like... Whoops, that was the wrong button. Someone's gonna be mad. Alright. Ah! I got a new heart. Wait, did I not get a new heart? Oh, I need 4. Right, okay. Tall Heights. Yes. Hey, Mr. Owl. The wind fish is named only for it is neither. Because it's neither wind nor fish? Like, what? Okay. Good point. Let's get rid of him. Is this like a battle dungeon? Here, let me... Oh, nice. Okay, so I got that one. No, these are probably where they're keeping the Bow Wow, isn't it? I've gone mad with power. Can I jump over their attacks? I'm assuming I can. Oh boy, that face. You must be assassins sent by Madame Meow Meow to rescue the mutt. Oh boy. I think it'll hit. Oh, can I jump behind him? Ow. I jumped right into that. Oh boy. Oh, okay. That's what's up. Alright. Oh, okay. I've seen X-Men before. Oh, I need to stay a little longer. Okay. Look at a little fairy. Got a fairy. Okay. Hey, Bow Wow. Whoa, calm down. You say Bow Wow. Alright, Bow Wow, let's go. Oh, that's not a door. I was like, why can't I go through this door? But there's no door there. Yeah, no, it's not synchronized, but it's not that long. It's only like half a second or so. At least it should only be a half second or so. Alright, I'm gonna take Mr. Bow Wow on a walk. Alright, Bow Wow, let's go. No, it's definitely through my settings. Oh, I have an idea.
Hey, you made it out of there. That speaks well of you. Maybe you can help me out with a little job. I'm Dape, and my job runs out digging up interesting stuff. When you have some time to spare, come see me in my shack over there. Okay.
Got him. So that is Mount Tamara Ranch? Tamara Ranch? Get him! Sick him, boy! Nice. Nice. Is the Game Boy printer... Oh crap, I want to see if I can like trap him on the corner. I want to see if I could trap him, you know? Can I push him? Push him off the edge? Go over there. Go over here. I really want to see if I could trap him somewhere. You know what I mean? I know you say I can't, but you haven't seen glitches before. The concept of glitches. I'm sure it's possible somewhere, somehow. Eat him! Alright, cool. Can you get him over there? Is that possible? Can you get him? No? Okay, cool. That's Ghost Town, USA. Quick, boy, eat them. Eat the ghosts. Are you not gonna eat the ghosts? Okay, you cannot eat the ghosts. I'll attack the ghosts. I feel like that's not really... I don't know if this is working or not. These spirits aren't dying! Maybe they have too much health? Okay. Those are spooky. What is that? Are those moles? Or are those zombies? Okay, I wonder if any of these can be... Okay, I can push them, so let's look around and see if we can find anything. It's just annoying that Mr. Bow Wow doesn't want to help me right now. Maybe he only attacks Malbans because they harass me. You have to have both remarkable power and courage enough to face this trial alone. The way will not open for cowards. Wow, I didn't expect to be personally attacked today. Damn. It's rude. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of ghosts here. They just keep spawning. Yeah, I'm assuming that was probably the only one we could interact with, but thinking there's ones like this where the thing or the dirt on the ground makes me think that something could happen, but maybe not. Oh my god, that's a big ghost. Now I want to kill him. I killed him. I got a fairy. Well, that was a waste of time. There might be something in there, but I'm just gonna move on. We have the wasteland. Eat the birds! Do it! Wow. He missed. He missed the birds. Dang it, man. Come on. Wait. Can I... Let me zoom in on there. Yeah, no, I'm assuming one of the graves is interactable, but I'll just go back later. And we should probably actually take him to the swamp. I could take him back, but I think I want to take him to the swamp and see what where we can go. Because I don't remember, is he required for the swamp, or is it optional that you can take him to the swamp? I went in a circle? That's fine. I was just looking around. Required. Okay, yeah, I couldn't remember. Alright, haha, jumps. What is up in here? Do your best silver voice? It's no use! Take this! It's no use! Take this! Hey, what's Mr. Right? It's no use! Your voice has to be like strained. It's no use! Take this! How about this? At least that's what his voice is in my head. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Dang it! This will end it! It's no use! Take this! Okay, enough of that. Oh no. It's no... I want to lift it. I want to lift it. But not quite. I can't quite do it. It's the likes. Interesting. I could jump off of that? Wait, does it work? Oh god. Bow Wow, help me! I thought he would actually help me, but he didn't. Luckily, none of my stuff got stolen. Why is there chain chop and link? There just is. Don't worry about it. Anyway, let's check this. Music! The fish stirs in the egg. You are there! Okay. Whatever you say, buddy. Eat him! Eat the fish! Do it, dog! Are you not gonna? Okay. Alright, thanks. Thanks, buddy. Cool, good job. Good boy. What is this, Mario Kart? Very nice. Oh, we almost have enough for the shovel. Sweet. We'll have to get this after this dungeon. It's no use. Shake this. Mr. Bow Wow, where'd you go? Oh, okay, there he is. Why won't you come with me? It's no use, he won't. Alright, well I guess he's gonna stay there while we do this. Actually, I don't know if I can do anything in here. Can't exactly light these. Oh wait, no, I have magic powder. Because it has magical effects. It's not sleep powder, it's magic powder. Alright, there you go. We're good. I thought about it for a second. I'm good. I'm good. Oh, this one jumps at me. Interesting. Neat. Oh. That is a one neat toe. Alright. Just got Link's Awakening in the mail. Nice. Alright, thanks, man. Appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by. It's a Shy Guy. Yeah. Look at me. I am. Let's get him onto here. He's gonna cop. Stop copying me! Why are you copying me? He was copying me! Hey, what's up? We're fine. I knew that's what I had to do. I had to just work it out for a second. I swear I'm not an idiot, okay? Like, just give me a second. Give me a hot second, okay? Oh, we have to find a beacon every dungeon? Okay. Can I jump over these? That makes sense. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Are we supposed to be able to do that? Get up on top of it? I'm assuming yes. Are we actually on it? It's hard to tell. Wait, why can you walk? What? No, I guess I'm still on it. Local dungeon creature does not understand the y-axis. Yeah. Ba ba da ba. I can't really do anything with the pots at the moment, unless I get the wrist bracelet, the Live Strong bracelet up in here. Can I push one of these? No, not quite. I'll have to... I can go around. Now I can push it. Now I can... Come on. Is there a door? Well, I could go this way. I'm gonna keep going the current route until I hit a dead end. I can't exactly... Maybe with the bracelet I could grab stuff instead of just pushing. Either way. Now can I push? Now I can push. How long am I going to be streaming? A couple hours. I got a power piece. I feel powerful. Oh. Push, pull. Push, pull, pull, push. What? I jumped through it? Oh, I just failed to get on it. That caught me off guard. I was like, what is that? But, yeah, see, if you see, like, you don't actually stay on top of it. Watch, I could show you. See? You have to, like, get right up onto it. It's not a no-clip. It's just a weird bit of the way it's coded. But that caught me off guard. I thought I was going to be on it, but I wasn't quite there. Oh, I made that. I didn't expect that. Oh, God. Oh, God. Yeah, it's just some weird collision. That's all. Is this it? Is there nothing else I can do here? Let's try one more time. Maybe I gotta be faster? No? Okay, cool. Maybe it doesn't work without the lights activated. Either way.
Aha, my name, Jeff.
Alright. Oh god, he grabbed me. Didn't expect that. Can I... A little bit of that? Nope. Oh god, he grabbed me. He is good at lifting things up. Oh god, he has bombs. Why does he have bombs? Oh no! Oh, damn it. Okay, we're fine. No! We're fine. I was so close yet so far every time. Okay, can I get you? Got him. Uh-huh. Oh boy, that is just a straight up black hole, isn't it? I got a map! Yo, is DPad streaming in 2019? I know, right? Nutty! Okay, so there's some stuff back there. We'll go check out later. What? I remember playing Link's Awakening emulated, having a blast. Yeah, this game's pretty cool. I'm really glad to see it have a remaster. What have I missed? Not much. We're in the second dungeon. doing stuff. Opening doors, jumping over things, getting hit by boos. That is just a straight up boo. It's his lesser known twin, DPad. Yeah. I got the power bracelet. Tell the pattern? No. Just let me do my thing. Oh, I have gone mad with power. Easy peasy. It's not necessary, but I did it. I got a small key. All right. Okay. Oh, they do hurt. Okay. Oh, I see. Their weakness is getting a pot thrown at them. I got a double kill. Nice. I got a good old double kill. Everyone, look! I missed a rupee. Double kill. Can I get crushed to death? Is that possible? No, I wanna see if I can crush myself to death. He's not clay. He's just a toy. Really? Really, buddy? Can I set these down? Nope. I'll just hold one. Oh, I was so close to be able to crush myself. All right, let's do that again. I was trying to crush myself, but it didn't work. I was trying to crush 40, okay? Wait, can I hold a pot while I climb? Oh my god, I can. Okay. Didn't expect that. Alex, can I throw it? I can't throw it while climbing. Interesting. I'm just gonna take it with me. It's mine now, okay? I didn't take it with me. Dang it. Oh, we need the key. Okay, so that's unfortunate. We have to get the nightmare key elsewhere. Awkward. He uses his nose to climb? Yeah, I don't know how he does it, but he's pretty good. Skedaddle, skadoodle. Your key is in a different room. Oh, that's neat. You can't carry it through a door. Because they're like, I don't know what happened. Dang it. There we go. Oh, I see. Wait. Can I... Can I do a thing? I see, because I see this square is a different color. So give me a second. Oh, they're all different colors. Awkward. Kill the rabbit then install foes? Okay, well, I can do that. Give me a second. Oh, yeah. Ow. Wait, what? I can do that? Is that what you wanted from me? Spare the bunny? I refuse. Okay, so that was interesting. It's a Goomba! Look at the Goomba. I need piranha plants. That's not... Hashtag not my Zelda. Kill the rabbit, then the keys, then the stall foes. Oh, okay. Well, I could go back. Let me, I want to get this heart. Actually, can I go backwards? Because there was a jump I had to do. Oh, no, we're fine. Huh. Come meet your maker. No. Oh, rabbit keys Stalfos. Okay, I'm not paying attention. Whoops. All right, sorry. Let me just do that. Correct now. Okay. Are you happy? Are you happy I'm doing it? I did it. I'm assuming an owl somewhere in the dungeon tells me that, but I haven't found the beak yet. But I got it. All right, cool. Yeah, I'm pretty sure an owl would tell me that, but I haven't seen the owl beak yet because I didn't go down a certain route. I'm still gonna go down that route. Wait, can I attack that? You got a key. I can. Okay. Oh, he's so happy. He's like, I murdered that plant. That indigenous wildlife. That fauna. That flora. It's all dead. You will tremble beneath my mighty something. I don't know what I'm saying. Alright, let's go back to the start. There is a... I could get this on the way out, but I want to get it now. Money! Sweet. We're gonna get the, we are gonna get the, shovel when we, oh crap. Get a chance. Should probably not die here. Probably grab that. Alright. Oh boy. Wait, can I hold my shield while... No, I can't hold my shield while jumping. I gotta... Okay. So that's... Alright, that's the whole point of coming this route? Well then. That's, a shame. Ow. It's unfortunate. Well, oh well. Good to know you could just avoid it. I don't see anything else that we can get, so... Let's move on. I wanted to check. Now I know. Let's see if we could get a couple things here. That was just nothing. Isn't it this way? Am I remembering? The dungeon is pot shaped? Oh, it is. Oh wow, you're right. I didn't even. You were saying it's the shape of the pot, but I didn't know what you were saying. But like, oh, okay, there we go. Oh yeah. Okay, the one up top. Alright, catch you later, Alicia. Thanks for stopping by. Or Alicia? I probably said that wrong. I'm sorry. I don't know why I did like an extra syllable there. Alright. I murdered them all. Alright, yeah, we have enough for only one item so far. We need 400 rupees total if we want to get the heart piece in the shop. And I'm assuming there's gonna be more stuff soon also. Oh, I saw him crash out for a second. I'm sure you can do something there, like crush him or something. All right, let's open this. That's just a vase. That's not a vase. That's a clown. Ho ho ho! I'm your bad guy this time. Ho ho ho! But his name's Genie? Come on. We all know his name's It. That's Pennywise right there. Don't you love it when you just like tell him? You don't hurt me as long as I have my bottle. Yeah, that's okay. All right, buddy. Who's that? It's Ingenious Clown. Yeah, you're right. Can I? Oh no, that still hurts. Okay, I can't just shield it. Oh god. I wanted a spin attack, but I failed. I like the art style of this game quite a lot. Doria! Alright. That wasn't too bad. If I did it on spin attack, probably could have knocked off a... What is it? Spin attack sound? What? What's this? Yeah, it's pretty standard. Yeah, we got a new one. We got I want to say kazoo. I know it's like not trumpet? Horn. It's just a horn. Okay. I was overthinking that. It's higher pitch? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I wasn't really paying attention to that. I love how he blinks while he's holding it like, yeah, this is my life now. Prairie, prairie. Prairie dogs are hairy. Waiting on the prairie. Cool. Good job. You got him. No, no, no! I fell in. Forgot you had Chomp, yeah. Well, we can go through this now. I don't know what's in here. But we're gonna go in. I'm pretty sure we can jump that. I jumped to 2 lengths earlier. Yeah, see? I knew we could do it. Now to get out. Is that Lost Woods? Yeah, pretty much. Alright, we're good. It's a little close, but we got it. The other ones I can't get to. We need more emotes? Yeah, I have more slots for emotes, but I just don't know what to add, to be honest. If you guys have any suggestions, like, tell me, please. Like, I will add something today. Well, when I get around to it. I mean, I just need to know what to add. I'm gonna grab another one of these while I'm at it. This Link's face? Just like a close-up of his, like, smiling, like his beady little face. Does he blink? Watch him blink. See if he blinks. Okay? He blinks! Look at him! He's just trapped. He's like, oh god, please help me. Please. Life is pain. Help me. Oh, it's so good. Okay, so I got that. Are you playing on 3DS? Yes. Of course I am. No. No, I'm not. We have lots of money now. Actually getting close to that second item. And then release this on the Wii. Yeah. Yep, indeed. Now, if anywhere is gonna let me, like, get him stuck, it'd be, like, right here. You know? Like, that would be the key place. Anyways, we're here. I liked your Banjo analysis video. Thanks. Appreciate it. It was okay. It could have been a lot better. I actually had a flu when I made that. Oh, I got a kiss. That's something. Oh wait, I need to actually look. Bark bark. Chow chow. Place figure? Yes. Ta-da! Stop saying it's a fur coat. That weirds me out. I already hit the cuckoo earlier. I'm not gonna bother. Hey, what's up, man? I like this music, by the way. The theme, the remix. Let's step in my shack. Dampe's shack is this way. Adventure assistant wanted. By the way, Jake, is this what you're talking about? Alright. I can buy some bombs. That's not bad. I want this, though. Deluxe shovel. 20. No way! Oh, I was hoping he'd maybe drop the price down. Da, 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 da. Alright, well, I'll buy some bombs. I'll buy 20 bombs. Alright. It's clay or Play-Doh? I think it's more of a toy, because everything has a sheen to it, so it's more of like plastic. I think that's what they're going for. Just, bruh, just shoplift. Shoplift. I'm not doing that. Is there anything else? There is a heart. There is a rock? Why is there a rock? Okay, well, let's see what we can get over here. Why is there a rock? No! Ah! The footage is behind your voice. Yes, I know, but it should only be like a second, so it's not that big of a deal. Let's try again. Why is there a rock here? I'm just really curious about the rock, to be honest. No. Oh. No! No! Now he's getting pushed around. Actually, it makes it a little easier now. Wait, is he gonna get pushed backwards? Oh. Oh, crap. His foot is hitting the boards. Dang it. Yeah, let's try again. Bow costs a fortune? Gotcha. Yeah, I don't want to be a thief. Oh boy. Oh boy, this might not work out. I knocked it down. Oh, come on. Dang, is Ganon in the game? No, I don't believe so.
Oh.
Okay, that's pretty solid. Yes. 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 Got him. Okay, I don't know what the rock is for, or maybe it's worthless, but I want to see if I can get it. Look at that golden god. I got the rock. I got Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Play again? Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get the 50 rupee. I'll give it one try. See if I can make some money. I am a god. Just use save states. Jesus. Like, look at this. Stay in there, though. Like, I got you good. That was right on the money. Literally on the money. It's just rolling. Alright, we're good. I'm 2 for 2 for those 50 pieces. I'm not going to bother with the 20. Because I'll only get 10 back. I get it. Alright, cool. Chamber Stone. Okay. Well, I got that. And I got a Goomba. Technically, Ganon is in the game. Oh. Is he? Whatever. Alright, we made some money and it was back. What do you think about Banjo? Is Banjo fun? What do you mean? Like, Banjo-Kazooie the game? Like, Banjo-Kazooie is my favorite game. Stop attacking me! I'm sorry! I apologize. I didn't mean to. Okay, so... where do I want to go? I guess up in here. I could pick up this rock. I could pick up this one. I could check this out. So we'll do that. I haven't actually talked to this guy yet, though. I know we need to go to the prairie. Oh, and Smash? Yeah, I think he's fun in Smash. What does the Goomba do? I'm assuming I can give him to someone. Is he wearing headphones? How about some fishing, little buddy? Only charge 10 rupees. I'll fish. Yeah. Here's how to do it. Hold A and release the cast line out. The longer you hold it, the farther you cast. Tug on your line by moving the analog stick. Reel in and hurry. Keep tapping A. You got this, little buddy. All right. Oh, look at that! That's really cool. Okay. I see. I want the big boy. Wait, I actually see a bottle down there. Is that a bottle? No! Ah! My bottle! Yes, I want to keep going. Oh, everybody watch Link's little hands. Yeah. Yeah. I have to sneak past this fish. Nah, dang it. I really want the bottle. Who knew fishing was a stealth game? I know, right? Oh, come on! Now he's just trolling me. He's just messing with me now. I didn't ask for this. Leave me alone, fish. You're the worst. I didn't ask for this. Did that remove it from the play space? Because if so, that works out. Did my phone just died? My phone just died. Oh, right on the money. Oh, he's coming back. Dang it. Oh. Oh. It's a stealth game. Haha! I got my bottle. I can show glitches. I don't know any glitches. I've been messing around to see if I can find anything. I will try to get the big fish while I'm at this, you know. I got that. What's up, Crystal? How's it going? Okay, yeah, I'm gonna try to get the fish if I can. Actually, I am seeing. It's like an underground cavern. Look at that face! That is... Someone screenshot that face. That's a good face. Wait for him to blink? Yes. Nice. 10-inch runt. 11 rupees? Oh, okay. Oh, he had a heart piece, too. A piece of heart, nice. So that makes me a whole nother heart container. Or, yeah. That's one happy boy face. That's true. You see underneath me, it's like a cave. I wonder if like I get the big fish there, a gigantic fish shows up. Anyways, oh crap. I'm gonna call it there for that one. That's some good fishing. That's some good eats right there. Yeah, alright, cool. Let's get moving. Actually, we can go back, can't we? Well, thank you for subscribing. Appreciate it. The megalofish. Ba-da-ba-ba. I know that's referring to Megalodon, but I don't care. I like the episode where he's fished for a really long time. I'm pretty sure there's a wall we could explode in here. Yeah. Change off? No, he's good. Okay, I'm assuming this is nothing. Rupees. I wonder. Oh no, secret shell. Okay, that's worth it, I guess. You have Kazooie's feather? Yeah, you're right. It actually is the correct coloring and everything down to the yellow. Well, I guess actually the gradient would want to start halfway in the middle if it was actually Kazooie. That's pretty close. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna go all the way up to the prairie and do stuff along the way if we can. This is the only way true heroes travel. Okay, this is starting to annoy me, honestly. Hey, chest. Harpies? Secret shell. Rolling around at the speed of ground. Well, can I jump over that? Oh, I can. Okay. You totally can. Just don't be bad. I really like that fairy design. I think it's pretty unique to what I remember in the other Zelda game. Got a piece of heart in my first fishing attempt? Nice. Very nice. You know, while we're here, I think we could turn in the mushroom we got for some powder. So let's do that real quick. Maybe it has to pay. Maybe it's free, I don't know. Actually, I wonder if I could read her book. So she said, why not try a little bit in the hut? So good job. Use an enemy to see what happens. Cool. I'm gonna break your belongings, okay? Just so you know. Mushroom? I can say however I want. I usually say mushroom, but I could say mushroom.
This is a Minecraft ripoff.
I got him so good there. Look at that. Just bang. Oh, that's right. I totally forgot I have this. I could be using this places. Oh, thanks. Thanks. Genie? Did I say that right? Thank you. Appreciate it. It is Minecraft. You can dig Minecraft. Looks like Mario. I think this is actually Pokemon? I think this is Pokemon. Now you bring it up. Oh my god, did I just knock myself into... Yeah, shut down. Put. Oh, can I blow this up? can't. Well, can I blow that one up? I can. Well then. Let's try that again. Oh! Okay, that's right. Okay. I can just do that. Alright. Oh, do I need like the hook shot, maybe? Alright, cool. I did it. I did it. Oh, you're the one that sent me a DM? Hey, what's up? I thought that was really good, honestly. Is that a glitch? No, that's not a glitch. That's just a silly little strat. That was possible in more than one older game. Oh, nice. You could just sort of... Well, I don't remember your name on Instagram, but I do remember getting a DM on Instagram out of nowhere. I rarely use Instagram, so it's hard not to remember. DPad the cheater! He probably eats pumpkin also! Get it? I get it. Pepperidge Farm remembers. What is this about? Cool. Link Between Worlds? No? Hi, what's your name? Tracy. Hi, big guy. I'm Crazy Tracy. I got a little secret. This'll pump you up. 42 rupees? Sure. Okay. Secret medicine? It'll take effect when you lose all heart. Excuse me? It will take effect when you lose all heart. Drop by again. Okay then. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. I know what she means when I die, but it just caught me off guard. As like, lose all heart? Like, what? It makes sense, but yeah. Dampe Shack is not too far. Is this the shack? It looks muddy and gross, so I'm assuming it is. Hey, buddy. Hey there. I forgot what voice I gave him. I'm gonna show you something interesting. You've gone poking into some ruins of the island, I can tell. Make little chambers based on those dungeons. Put some chambers into this slab! Oh! This is Mario Maker, but with Zelda. I did get a chamber stone, so we could do that. Oh, Captain Rainbow? Interesting. It's Mario Maker time! Oh, I can do Amiibo. I'm just gonna open it up right now. I bought the Link's Awakening Link Amiibo. I don't care to keep them packaged. I really don't, so I don't bother. Yeah, so let me do Amiibo. I would like, get Special Chamber? Yeah, there you go. Like I said, I got the Link one, so. We got a chamber! Cute little Link. He's gonna go on my shelf later when I get around to it. I also got the Shadow Link effect. Cast a terrifying shadow over your dungeon. I'm gonna range. I don't think I have any other Link amiibos. Dungeon arranging. Okay, so I started this one already. Can you finish it? Make a path from the entrance to the Nightmare Lair. There's got to be a stop along the way for the treasure chest. If a chamber's got an exit, you gotta connect it to another exit. Nobody wants an exit that goes nowhere. Okay. Take a chamber from the menu on the right with A and slap them on the tiles with A. A lot of times you want a chamber with a particular set of exits, so that's how I divide them up. You can flip through the list with L and R. Okay. Effect panel on any chamber. So this is the effect. Check. Check? Oh, that's... Okay, well... This is shadow, but I don't know exactly what that means, so I'm gonna drop it in there. Oh, it makes it spooky. I guess it makes sense. Okay. So, here, let's see what we can do. So we have a start here. We have... Oh, so 2 exit, 1 exit, and then we can skip between... Let's try one of these. What do I want to do here? Wait, what? This is a fairy fountain? We got a... Are these... Oh, are these all the tiles we've gone through in the game before?
Oh, thank you.
By the by, I've lost 13
Ooh,
pounds
nice.
so far on keto. My goal is to be at around 200 pounds by the end of the year.
Very nice. If you guys don't know, well, first, thank you for the donation. Also, great work on that weight loss. If you don't know, I've been trying to lose weight this year with keto. I'm down... I've been plateaued, but I'm at... I lost about 73? 70? About that much since the start of the year. So, yeah, keto is pretty solid. I'm not here to shill keto, but it is pretty good, I think. That's why that explains that donation. In case you aren't aware, I post about it on Twitter, but I don't really post about that sort of thing on YouTube or whatnot. But yeah, okay, so let's pick something here. I'll put one of these here. Nightmare key is always going to be in the last dungeon chest you open. Any extra chests around the dungeon will have rupees and such in them. Okay. Cool. Fairy fountain? How about a genie? An exit in a chamber might turn into a locked door or a shutter depending on which chamber you hook it up to. The rules for which type of exit gets the right of way. Interesting, okay. Cool. I'll put this one down here. Sometimes you think you're all set, but a chamber isn't turning from red to blue like it should. When that happens, press Y to check and see what the deal is. So red's like, oh, this isn't connected and whatnot. I'm going to... actually, no, here, let's do that one. I can't move these, they're locked in. One chamber with stairs isn't enough. You should put second stairs too. That will link up. When the entrance lights up green, your job is done. Chamber dungeon. I'll set you up with all the bombs and such you'll need. After it's over though, you'll have whatever you had before. Makes sense. Okay, well then, let's redo one of these. This has stairs. That's so useless, but let's do that. Whoops, dang it. Oh, I could... Actually, you know what? Let's not do that. I'm not going to spend the whole stream doing this, but I'm just going to set that there. And, yeah, I think we're good. I'm going to go adventuring. Let's try it. See if I could beat the dungeon I just made. Alright, goal of adventure in this dungeon is to get to the end and beat the nightmare. Try not to run out of hearts before you get there. you want to quit before it's over, you can quit via the quit menu. Ow. Can I just bomb him up? Is that an option? Yeah, if they made it, I don't know if it's not how it is, but if you could share dungeons, then that's Mario Maker right there, and they should do that. If they haven't already. But I don't think they have. Oh my god. How dare you. Yeah, this game's pretty cool so far. 1 rupee? Come on. Who is Nightmare? No, no, no. How is Nightmare? Anyways. Yeah. Cheat days, for me, I am not good at utilizing cheat days, but if you... The whole point of a cheat day is definitely to, like, help keep your sanity. So whatever works. Because even 6 cheat days a day, or cheat days a week, that's still 1 healthy day more than you might otherwise, if that makes sense, you know? And I think that's what a lot of people don't consider. It's like, it's fine to have tiny progress. So 2 cheat days, that's pretty solid, in my opinion. 5 cheat days a day? Yeah, that's a lot of cheat days all in one day? Dang. What do you mean is that? Can I bomb him? Oh, whoops. The fire sustained. I made a really obnoxious dungeon because I don't like having to fight this guy multiple times. Oh, look at that pro gamer move. Nice. Oh my god. This is taking forever. Three cheat meals a day, 7 cheat meals a day. Chat is so toxic. You're not wearing your detox. I'm trying to make some joke. I don't know what I was gonna say. Oh my god, this dungeon's so stupid. I put so many mini bosses. Why did I do that? I'm gonna die. Am I gonna die? I'm gonna die. I swear to God. Gee, Scoops, there's like... Alright, we're fine. 21 cheat days a day. Yes. Burger time. Chop chop, burger time. Oh, come on. Alright, well, at least it's not like the real dungeon where I fall down on another level and have to come back. Alright, there we go. 69 cheat days a day. Every raid, 51 cheat days a raid. Alright, we did it! We beat our dungeon. That was a pretty garbage dungeon. There were times I swear you had one foot in the grave. It's true. Yeah. So like that deserves something for my collection. Nice. I got a chamber. See, slot into a dungeon to see what's inside. I can see this being really cool. The rupees you find around the dungeon are a little bonus for me. You can keep them. Neat. I wonder if you could create like farming, rupee farms. Cool. Yeah, I can see that. 800s or 86,400 cheat days a day. So many cheat days. Strange energy coming from under there. Take a look. Okay. Oh my god, he just flew. Oh, because I don't have anything connecting to it? Yeah, makes sense. $69,420. Nine and 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 nine. All right, we can stop. I know I messed up when I said cheat days a week or a day. Whatever, just stop. I think it's a days per day. E to the, or 8 to the 8.6, whatever. I can't even speak. It's the mountain. I think I need to be in the prairie right now, but either way, we're here. The prairie is, let me zoom out a bit. It's like this area over here. And we're here now. It's the egg. It's the egg. Anybody want some scrambled eggs? Picosecond? Yes. Dang it. Okay, let's try that again. Is the egg healthy because no more cheat days? Eggs are really healthy, actually. They're really good for you. I like boiled eggs, but I'm too lazy to actually make them. This game is a classic. Oh god, I fell. Alright, well that saved some time. It was a speed run. Yeah, if I'm being honest, I had a milkshake today. So, well, milkshake, fries, and a burger. So obviously that's not exactly a tackle this obstacle? Tackle it. Tackle? I can't tackle anything. So I guess that's my cheat day. But it's pretty good. It was like a breaded Japanese burger. Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna be able to get through here. I can't exactly tackle this, so. Boiled eggs by baking them. Oh yeah, I've seen that. I've never done that myself, but I have seen that. You can essentially do that to make super easy, like McMuffin sort of eggs, you know? that you can find at McDonald's. I've never tried that. Maybe I should. Is that sounds good? Learn foot tackle. Yeah. It's about a half an hour. Well, we're done with the second dungeon. We're zooming around at the moment, just doing stuff. Can you ship a pizza? No. Wait, why would you ship a pizza to me if you're hungry? Angler keyhole. Okay, well, I'll try to find that. Oh God. Oh, nice, I can teleport. Alright, I don't think it's gonna work out. Let's ignore him. Yeah, it wasn't even a good joke. It was a bad joke. Oh, dang it. That's not, that won't work. What's up, Brian? How's it going? If I go down there, am I gonna drown? Let's try. Yes. The answer is yes. Oh God, that flew for a really far distance. I was gonna say a really long time. Let's back up a bit. Wait, what? I thought I was like walking on the ledge for a second. Yeah, I'm sure they would be open to having a character in Smash. Who wouldn't? It's free promotion. That'd be so solid for anybody, honestly. Let's beat up some crows. They've existed for too long. PETA's gonna sue you. PETA's a joke. Favorite Zelda game? I quite like Majora's Mask. Is there any others here? I think that's it. It's pronounced Peter. That's said Peter. No, Peter. That's what I'm saying. Peter. Okay. What can we do here? Oh, castle. I haven't even seen that. Why are you showing me that? All right. Well, they said something about the prairie, but I'm too dumb to know what to do. I guess I can. Oh, that's right. I do have a thing here. Maybe I could dig something up. Dig a little something-a-roo. I found something. Yeah, I saw the video of a dude running, Naruto running past a news anchor. South? I could go south. I went south. Are you happy, Dad? Look at all these rupees. South of the hut? Oh. Oh, you're right. Yeah, I haven't got down here. Good call. It's a whole different prairie. Cool. What? You can just go that way? I feel dumb. I could have saved a lot of time. Okay. Well, that's good to know. I feel silly. Well, I got some exploring done. That's good. Let's go in here. Okay. Crush him. What? That didn't crush him at all. Okay, I didn't expect that. That's not gonna work. All right, let's try that again. I already failed this. I'm realizing now I already failed this, so let's try it again.
Can you find hidden Zelda?
I don't know what that means. Why did I do that? I still want the chest, but I goofed up this run, pretty sure. Let's try that again. Did I get this game? I think it's pretty fun. I'm quite enjoying it. It's way more playable than the original version. Like, it's way nicer to look at and just feels good to play. I could teleport around now. Sweet. That'll help save some time. I know I need the Pegasus boots, but I wanted to try something. Okay. Like I said, I want to try something. Because, like, there's some weird movement you could do. Like, you could jump like this. Just explode me to death. I love that sound effect though. There's so much anguish in that moment. I do not have the slime keyhole, or the slime key, though I want it. Yeah, I bought these bombs. Salutations! You wouldn't know by the look of me, but I used to live in the castle. My servant's been berserk and has forced to flee my villa. So you may be looking for something, are you? I just may have what you're looking for. First, I retrieved a golden leaf I left behind because... Alright, cool. You can do some digging, buy a shovel. I got a shovel. We're good. On his way to zombie hover. I highly doubt that, but it'd be nice to be able to skip through stuff. I guarantee speedrunners have already found something. I don't know what, but I'm sure they found something. Got him. We go up and around, I guess? That way?
Oh, thank you.
Hi, Pat. Just stopping by.
Did it say hi, Pad? Thank you very much for that $2 donation. Appreciate it. Oh my god, that is... Holy crap. These enemies are a bit creepy. I much appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for stopping by. Alright. Can I get some bees to attack me? I'm pretty sure I can. But I don't want to. I'm assuming I can't blow that up. Oh, okay, I can blow that up. Well, that makes, okay. That makes sense, I guess. Oh, that's back where I've been. Okay. Oh god, those are spiders. Oh, I don't like that at all. What is this hellscape? No! No! I don't like spiders at all. I think most people don't like spiders. Can't go in. Spiders, oh man! Zoing Scooby, we're spawn trapped. Oh god. Please don't. What? That's mean. Ah, crap. Huh. Around here, secrets are nigh! Aha! Got my secret. What? I can't dig there? That looks totally diggable. Weird. Okay, oh well. I guess I'll just go back down. Artist mini boss? I've only fought a few so far. The one that grabs me is a little rough though, because he has a very unforgiving hitbox with his grabs. Actually, Joseph, I don't know how long I'm gonna stream. I might see about doing one more dungeon? I'm not really sure. To be honest, my day started about 6 hours ago because I slept in till 1. Oh, look at that. Sweet. I've been streaming for 2.5? Yeah, 2 hours, 39 minutes. Ooh, can I get that? Glub glub? Oh, I thought I could grab it while I'm drowning. Yeah, can't really do that here, so... Actually, think about it, can I... I doubt it. No, I had to try. Alright, I'll come back. Y'all, I'm not streaming all day and night. God, no. I don't even feel like playing all day and night. Well, at least not this game. I wanna play more WoW, but honestly, I do need to finish the script. Oh, is this a seashell house? Ooh, seashells. 1? Yeah. I did get up, the thing is I slept from 9 p.m. until 5 a.m. and I woke up, I made breakfast and I played and I did the stuff until, well, 9 a.m. and then I went back to bed. Overcome the darkness? Find secret shells? Sounds like you should come back with lots of shells and try standing on the platform. It's not bad. I got one thing so far. Nice. Hey, what's up, Don? How's it going? Cool. So we'll have to come back and fill it up for more bonuses. All right. Where do I want to go? We'll just keep running around randomly. I know the prairie is supposedly... Oh god! Supposedly where we want to be. Alex should do a link impression. Yeah. That could be cool. Can we go? Oh no, the Pegasus boots for their. He wants me to visit there. I can't exactly do that. I don't. I drowned there. I can't get across there. There's stuff I can't do in there. There might be some stuff up in here? I don't know. Hey, Krogunk. Hey, how about screw you? Cool. If you're gonna be a dumb child, get out. I can teleport around. Yeah, this section's gonna be blocked off until I could eventually get the Pegasus boots. So let me look. There's somewhere else I'm missing in plain sight. Something here? Well, wait, have you been in here? Yeah. Yeah, this game's pretty cool. I think it's pretty cool. Wait, have we already been up here? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This is where we came from. Actually, you know what? Let's go back and see if there's anything to buy at the shop, because we could afford. Oop, oh, that was close. We could afford another 200 rupee thing if that's available. Can you go back to the castle? I could. I don't know if there's anything we could do there because the door's locked, but there might be something. Bow. The bow is 980. What? Sir, what kind of extortion is this? You're the worst. Steal and go back? I don't want to steal it. I don't want to die. I know that's what's going to happen. Steal. I refuse. I really don't want to die, and I don't want to be renamed a thief. I'll get some money. See if we can do it in one go. Nah, I don't know if it's gonna work. It's a little off. Just kidding. We in there. I'm not gonna steal. I'm not gonna fail the peer pressure. I'm gonna get the other one as well. Oh, nope, I failed that one. Wait a second. I didn't expect that. Just kidding. Alright, first try. We're good. That's some easy money. Yeah, because it costs 10, I only got a total of 50 there. Hey, what's up, Bandy? But, man, I love the claw game. How is Lonk woke? He's pretty woke, I gotta say. It's been fun. I got 2 dungeons down so far. I'm actually, I don't know, sorry, pretty good at the crane game, all things considered. But I am thinking, what do I want to do here? We have the secret medicine. Bananas. Oh yeah, we checked at the chamber via Dampe. It's pretty neat. Like basically the Mario Mario Maker. The Mario Maker feature is pretty neat, I gotta say. I don't know if there is, but I wish we could share them to actually make it Mario Maker. I could do fishing. I already got the bottle from there. There is something I'm missing here. I guess I could go back here, but there's also, I didn't look very closely up in this area. And I sort of skipped out of this one. So, yeah. You know, oh. Can we lift that rock? We might be able to do that. Let's go down there. Goomba? Yeah, we have a Goomba plush. Or figurine, I guess. There's a lot of Mario stuff. Ignore the chain chomp. They're gonna add sharing. They're gonna take the feature and make it on the game. I mean, I'm fine with that too, honestly. Like, that scream always gets me. I just want them to do something, obviously. Like, because it's such a cool feature. Is this Mario stuff copyrighted? Yeah. Unfortunately, Nintendo's gonna have to sue Nintendo. You know how it goes. Oh, we'll just have to go around. How's the game? Hey, what's up? It's neat. Is the game super hard? Not so far. It's been pretty fun. I haven't died yet, so that tells you something. Here we go. Da, 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 da. Martha's Bay. I have it set to ultra low latency. Secret shell, nice. I wonder, can I fall into... Nope. I was gonna say, can I like fall into a secret room? Is it jumping faster? No, it's just fun. I mean, Marth is Bay, I gotta say. It's a whole lot of nothing. Thought something would happen. I just ruined this house for nothing. I thought something would happen. Now this is live racing. Yeah, I'm not gonna. You'd be surprised with what garbage you can get away with in this game. Or in Zelda games. Alright, it's not gonna work. I really wanted to work one of these times. I mean, like, for those that caught it, I did manage to cheat a puzzle earlier by just barely jumping around it. There we go. We can see stuff now. Yeah, that requires fish, or not fishing, swimming right there. Why are you trying to get... I'm not trying to get a game over. I'm just trying to mess around and see if I can cheese the physics. Because like I said, I did it earlier. I wonder if there's a teleport pad really close to here. I guess this is the closest. Yeah. Did you guys see the Epic Gamer news that YouTubers are getting their verification removed? Hey guys, did you see the Epic Gamer news that users are gonna keep their verification because they changed their mind in one day? Do you have unlimited lives? I don't know. I haven't gotten a game over that yet, though. Yeah, they reversed their decision, though, so I think that's actually pretty cool. Because I thought it was pretty dumb that they'd want to do that in the first place. So I think it's nice to see they listen to the community. I was really surprised to see that, to be honest. Why did they choose to begin with? Well, I mean, in all fairness, I can understand it because, as it stands, and they even said this in their second message, basically like the current rules are too lax, and that's true, and I understand that because all you need is 100,000 subscribers. You could technically bot your way there, and to be able to get the thing, it's like stupid easy. So of course they want to make it so that it means something, and sure. But the problem is they overcorrected, I think, by, and also it was completely unclear in terms of like what constitutes a verifiable channel, because like I'm not calling them out. I'm just saying, for example, like I believe Nico and Simple Flips both were fine, but Bandy wasn't, and SMG4 was, and it's like, well, it's weird, like because Bandy's that's a very personality-driven thing. Some of their things are like, oh, if you've been like, linked on news sites and all this and that. It's like, well, Drew's had that. Like, what's up with that? Like, Swanky Box has its own book. Like, yeah, it's like everybody, like, almost everyone has like stuff that'd be like, well, why does A get it and B doesn't? But you had like channels with millions of subscribers, huge channels that need that verification badge because otherwise they're gonna get impersonated out the wazoo, just gone. And it's like, cool, great. So I think it's just like a section of YouTube is like, all right, well obviously we have an issue here, let's correct it. And they push the correction, and they're like, oh crap, we didn't actually think about it, and clearly we didn't actually ask people about it. Because they said we asked creators and they wanted it, and people joke, but I'm not even joking when I think, yeah, they talk to giant channels like Jimmy Fallon, Will Smith, like obviously channels like that, they would be fine, and they want channels like that need the verification to be more strict because they're so susceptible to not just impersonation, but just in general, like, sleaziness. Like, I'm sure you've seen channels that, like, advertise spam messages, and they'll have the same name as the uploader. And sure, some people still follow that because some people are silly, but having the verification means, like, when you go to a Jax Films video, and you see 30 different Jax Films in the comments, well, just look for the one that has the badge, and you're fine. Just don't click anything. Well, don't click any weird link anyways, but the point is, like, the verification is helpful. So I understand. I definitely understand them wanting it to mean something. And I think the second route they're going, which is, well, everyone keeps it as it is. They're going to keep the same rules, but just like tweak it a bit and try to make it a little more thorough. Sure, that makes complete sense. And I think a more, in general, with YouTube, it's always a more nuanced approach is probably the best. Because they have a tendency to sort of go down one route or one sort of frame of reference and just like think that works, but that's not how it is. Like, the platform is so varied, like you can't just workshop it in one department and think it's good. That's not going to work out. And I think that's the case of this, where it's like, well, we did an oopsie. But honestly, like, kudos to them to listen. They weren't even like, oh, wow, we changed our minds because we wanted to. They said we listened, and I think that's key. Like, you can crap on YouTube all you want, but the fact that they actually said, we hear you, we messed up, like, that's good. We want that. So, like, you're totally justified to, like, complain to them when they do something wrong. But you should also be like, all right, good job. Like, I wish you didn't do that in the first place, but good job. And some people were replying to the tweet like, oh my god, bring back unabbreviated subscriber counts. And I think that, yeah, they should. But, like, you have to acknowledge the good and the bad. You have to acknowledge when they actually listen. Because otherwise, they're never going to listen. So, yeah. I didn't know I was attending a TED Talk. Sorry. I mean, maybe the fact that I'm a YouTuber keys it in, but like I care about YouTube. I could talk about YouTube for days. And this is the thing where it's like, some people treat it like a gold star. Some people think it's a meaningless badge of ego or whatever. But like the verification badge at the end of the day is important. So I think it's very understandable why people are angry. And I'm just glad, like, the more actual... I need to figure out where to go. The more actual, you know, discussion, feedback, you know, discourse we get, I think it's good. So where the hell do I go? Can I go through that? I don't think no, that's a stump. But yeah. I don't know where to go. I know they said something with a prairie, but I still don't know what that meant. Go to the castle? Okay, I'll go back to the castle. I'll go this way. That's a nice rant. I mean, it wasn't really a rant. I mean, I'm just getting my thoughts out there. I'm not upset or anything. If anything, I'm in a good mood because of it. Like, well, no problem, Kikia. I'm pretty sure I recognize your name. I think you've been here before. But yeah, thank you for showing up. I appreciate it. How's it going? Let it out. Let your feelings out. Can I attack this? Oh wait, I just noticed this. Ah, there we go. Oh, nice. Oh, crap. I should have bottled that. It's a positivity rant. Nice, I guess. Can I bottle that? Here we go. Haha, I got a prisoner! Since you're near the graveyard, enter the color dungeon and get the red tunic. What? What does it mean? I can't enter that yet. I need a key. Nuts and bolts should get a remake for Switch? No! No! Actually, though, a Nintendo-led follow-up could be good. Because I think Nintendo's been pretty solid on their experimentation. And I've said this before, you know, Banjo, Nuts and Bolts, garbage Banjo game, pretty good game. Like, pretty decent game. So, if they gave it, like, a different aesthetic, maybe have Tip Top, I always say this, have Tip Top the Turtle be the leader. You could have Tip Top's, I don't know, Tip Top's Robo Shop or whatever. Or Tip Top's Chop Shop. Like something stupid like that, right? I think it would be really cool. Have I gone that route? One second, I want to check this out. Oh, that's good. Whoa! What happened? Sorry, I lost my page there. Hope I'm still connected. Oh, hey, monkey, what's up? The stream didn't cut out, right? Because I clicked away from the thing. I think I'm fine. That caught me off guard. Bananas! Give bananas! Yeah, here you go. There we go. This is what I needed. Banana time! Look at those monkeys. Did I wash dishes? Welcome back. I finally found what I need to do. I gave the bananas and I made this. Well, they made this, but I made this. Monkey business done! Bye-bye! Kiki! Sweet. And I got a stick! Alright, you take it. You take the stick. Sure. Sure, buddy. What do we say? D-pad's mine. Jump. Why? Just jump. A hole. Communism noises. No, I meant like it's like the Reddit thing. It's like, you made this? I made this. Oh, you could Goomba stomp them. Classic. I'm Lucina. The new Call of Duty has 32 versus 32. That is actually pretty interesting. Can I light this on fire? No. Let me check over here real quick. Oh, I burned him alive. You gain the power of stick. Okay, let's go in. Don't spam. Come on. Local castle invaded by bouncing child. I mean, the boys playing 32 versus 32 split screen? That would actually be cool. That could be fun. Oh, the golden feather. That's what he needs, so we could bring that to Richard. Or is that his name? Richard? Whatever. Sebastian? It's some pompous name. That's all I know. But we'll keep going and see what I can do in here, if anything. Ah, there we go. Cool. Sounds like the castle get open. Now I can leave the castle. Sweet. Oh, neato. Oh, okay. Didn't expect that. I wonder how long he's been in there. Have you guys ever thought about that? Oop. Wait, are those two of them? Huh, whatever. Anything? Nothing? Cool. You wonder how long the Breath of the Wild monks have been waiting? Oh, I know they've been waiting for a long time. Wait, did I just go in a circle? No. Is this like the second floor? Yeah. Hey, a bomb! Oh wait, do I have to throw a pot at it? Yeah, I just saw the door, I was like, wait a second. Let me think about that for a second. Alright, cool. I got another one! What's up, Revelations? You playing this game? Nice. Very nice. 24 Legend of Zelda hour stream. Or 24-hour stream? No, it's not happening. Definitely not. Carry a pot? I refuse. Let's go turn that... Ooh, nice. Let's go turn in the leaf. have to go this way. Can we cut through here? I need 2 more? Wait, do I? Well, you're probably right, but I'm gonna go check. Where else would they be? There might have been another room I could go into, but here. Let's see what he says. Oh, okay, yeah. Alright. Interesting. We need 2 more. Where would they even be? The bird outside? Oh. For some reason I feel like it's slower. Actually, yeah, you see the screen like jitters? I think I'm technically wasting like a couple frames every time outside the castle. Oh, okay. Okay, well. Alrighty. Well, if you say bird, then it's probably this bird over here. Oh, in the hole. Okay, gotcha, gotcha. Come here, buddy. Okay. Don't spam Alex's comment section. Go watch his video though, for sure. He has good videos, but don't spam him. I'm never down for spamming. Oh, that's a knight. I didn't realize before. Got him. Whoops. I really like that. You've recovered the leaves. I'll move the statue. Find your reward. Oh, cut signs? I haven't tried. Here, let me try. You can be a channel member for Alex. You should be able to. Pretty sure. Oh yeah, you're right, you can't. Hi Froggos. Bye Froggos. No. Okay, never mind. You gonna play the whole game in the stream? No. No, I'm just aiming to see if I can get yeah, one more dungeon done, then we'll call it. Whoops. No, no. Come on. Got it. Aw, crap. That was a mistake.
And soil's secrets beneath your souls.
Aha! If only a rocks cape. I know, right? That'd be cool if it did. Must cut every piece. Oh god. No, oh no. Breath of the Wild 2? I don't know. I don't have enough comments to fit into 6 different analysis videos, but I think it's gonna be pretty cool. Okay, so... Oh, missed a bit of grass. Alright, cool. And it's back. No! If only... Anyways. That's not gonna work. This is some decent money, though. No! Wait, yeah, Breath of the Wild 2 has been announced. It's not out yet, obviously. It's gonna be coming out in a couple years, probably. Oh, wait, can I enter into the house? Oh, wait, I could have left that way, couldn't I? No! No! Look, if you look at the bottom of the screen, you can see every time I respawn, the terrain gets redone. One second. Here you go. Watch the bottom. Whoop. Alright, let's get this dungeon done and then we'll call it here. You push your dog off a cliff. Yikes, I've been there. Actually, I did an animation for that before. Maybe that's weird to say. Do you guys know the guy, the content creator, Steven Plays? I did a very bad flash animation for when he pushed his dog Sammy off of a cliff. Is the stream live? No, it's not. Sorry. No one tell him. Is it stream 1080p? No one click the, I don't know. Key cavern. Does it look like a key? We can't see the map, so who knows. What? Ooh, money. Stephen plays? Yeah. Hold up. Why hold up? Oh my god, that's very bouncy. Jesus. Stephen Plays memorable moments. Have you guys seen that video of mine? It's a really old one. Is it ever gonna end? Wow. Dang, that's rude. Aw, crap. Oh, it's so jiggly.
Do you even George a Minecraft Let's Play?
Yeah. What was a long time ago? I don't know if you're just, like, joshing with me or something, but yeah. $60 FPS somehow? Yeah. How long will the stream be? I don't know. Oh, no, I do know. I already told you. It'll be until we beat this dungeon. Why is the stream so laggy? Probably on your end, buddy. Sorry. Every couple minutes, like I said, your end, not mine. Because I can see my stream's health over here, and it's been excellent the entire time. So it's not coming from me. What magical garbage is this? That was weird. Alright. Use bombs? Well, I already got them, so it's all good. I have my ways. I will use bombs here, though. Awkward. Alright, well. This is a little awkward. They're like, they make me think of lemmings for some reason. Ah, dang it. Oh, it worked, okay. You can join the Discord. There should be a link in the description. Oh, awkward. I'm out of bombs! Oh, well, I just spam attack, that works. No! I wonder what happens if you let it fall. Will it just fall again? Nice. Another key. Yeah, I mean, it worked. I just jumped and spammed. That might be why it worked. Nice. Favorite game? Banjo-Kazooie. I need more bombs. Hope I can grab some. Thank you, game. Appreciate it. Awkward. Do you know the definition of insanity? It's a workout routine. Ah, I knew I could do it. It's so stupid. It works. Oh boy, that's so dumb. You thought I couldn't, but I did it. I knew it would work eventually. Cause like, obviously I killed the other one like that. I just had to... I just had to do it. Oh god, get away, get away! Ever tell this first gaming experience? I'm pretty sure my first gaming experience was, oh my god. Well, like, I played Super Mario Bros. On the NES way back when. I also remember playing Banjo-Kazooie really, really early on. So early, I couldn't figure out how to activate the Talon Trot. And I had to have my mom help me. That's something. I don't know which was my first game, though. But those were, like, really early on. I also played Duck Hunt, because that was super simple to play. And I would, like, point it up against the screen, because I'm a cheater. You know how it goes. Yeah, I saw the dead bodies earlier. That caught me off guard. Favorite Zelda game? I like Majora's Mask a lot. Uh-oh. This is really unsettling for some reason. I don't know why. What? No, come on, don't shake your head at me. Ow. I don't think I have enough bombs for this. Ah, one off. Can I get more? Oh, can I get more bombs up here? No, that's just a way to jump out. Oh, that's like, hey, you suck. Go get more bombs. Oh, yeah. I had a Zelda Collector Edition. I still have it. I played the crap out of that. That's why I like Majora's Mask so much. I don't think I ever actually played it on the N64. But it's super laggy, but I played the crap out of it on GameCube. I have played the original Link's Awakening, but not a lot. Let's explore a bit around before we try that again, because I need more bombs. Oh wait, yeah. Can I bomb this? I don't know. Oh no, I was like, oh. Oh, I could bomb that too. The bow? I want to get the bow, but I need to, I need to get more rupees before I can do that. I'm not gonna rob the store. I keep saying I don't want to do that. I know I can, but I don't want to. Look at that face. I do not like that face. I know this is another bumble wall right here, but I can't do it. I just said I know there's a bombable wall, but I can't do it. I don't have any bombs. Can I do anything here? Can I push these in? No. I'll have to come around from the side. Blech. That only ever has one bomb in it, and that's really annoying. No, I've only ever played one of the Oracle games. Okay, let's go bomb that bombable bomb. Bendy in the cup machine? Wow, that's my favorite crossover. The joke is it's not. Boris in the kawaii machine. Ooh. Or oh whoa. Super Paper Mario. I have barely played any Paper Mario game. I've never beaten any of them. I should play them. I know I should, but I just haven't. Then you know, creeper machine. Nathaniel Bandy in the ink machine. I haven't heard that one before. That's a good one. Yeah, I know Paper Mario's good. I just haven't. Okay, oh, you know what? I can go back and get some stuff here. Let's do that. Thanks for the work and learn. Chill stream and have fun. Alright. Thanks for stopping by. Oh, I go up this one. The beak! Neat. Well, how do I get the other one? Other thing. Awkward.
You missed a rupee!
Yeah. Dash and fly. I can't! I don't have that ability! Do I need to leave and go buy bombs? I really don't want to do that.
Kirby defrog, creeper, nah man. We back in the mine.
It's almost like, almost gonna go Christopher Walken. Wait, we're gonna make a mine.
Got our pickaxe digging from side to side.
I don't know. It's not very good. Bombs. Oh my god, it's gonna take so long! Can I do this one and then go back and forth? Farm some bombs? Gut? Gut? It's guh and then huh. That's how you spell it. It's gut. Say, I lost my pet creeper. Oh,
I lost my pet creeper. Oh man.
is that what you're talking about? I don't know. Got our swords swinging from side? No, I just not. What the hell do I do? I can't. Ah. Do I just ignore it? Like, what do I even do here? Is it not? Wait, is it not required? Yeah, no, it's required. Oh no! Kirby's got a knife! No, Kirby had a gun in one clip. I really don't want to have to leave and come back. No. Oh, you can see it's in the shape of a key, by the way. Gross. It's probably gonna be faster if I just go buy bombs. Banjo has a gun. What? Are you kidding me? It takes more than one? I am mad. No whining in the holes. Chop chop. Oh, I can do this now. Please let there be like 10 bombs in here. Ow. Oh my god, are these where they are? This game sucks, I hate it. The shape of the first dungeon? I'm not sure. I wasn't paying attention. Alright, there we go. I'll get a few more. I think I'd throw a bomb, because I don't have the bow. If I had the bow, I could probably kill that thing, but maybe I could throw a bomb to stop the black hole guy. It's not really a black hole, but you know what I mean. That's not gonna work at all. Never mind. A cello? No, that was the instruments. Because the instruments aren't the same as the shape. Yeah. Alright. No. Need the bow? Yeah, I thought as much, but I was like hoping maybe I could do it. Okay. I'll be very careful not to waste bombs, and probably still will. These things are really creepy. Look at them. No eyes. Oh, come on. Yeah, don't you even with me. Oh, got the Pegasus boots. Pop them? I didn't expect that, but okay. Still fell. Alright. There you go. Pyop, pyop. What does the Swedish balloon say when it pops? Pyop, pyop. Chiop, chiop. Where can I go? I want to get that key. Oh, right. Every game has glitches. It's true. It's true. A wise YouTuber once told me that. Yes. Chiop, chiop. Oh, look at him. Look at him. Look at that! Look at those skills! Look at those skills paying every one of those bills! Wait, can I just... Okay. Good night. Do you hear his little tappy feet? Yeah, I'm almost to the boss. I just gotta do one thing. But do you hear his little tappy feet? He like taparoos? Little tappy doodads? This is the 3rd dungeon. And there's 7 of them, I believe. So I'm like a third of the way through the game. Usually how it's shaping up. Oh, money. Ooh, 300 rupees. Oh! I am speed. Kachuga. I am speed. Ow. Kachuga. Sega. Sega. Who got him? You'd hear his little tappy feet. It's so good. Can I do something? Oh, I can't turn off turn off the music or anything like that. I was gonna say that'd be great if I could turn off the music and just like tap 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 tap. It's like a run around. Chugga. Thank you for the kind words. Kind words, JD. JD. Ah, I can't speak. Sorry. What, you can change directions? This changes everything. I know how to charge it again, but still, it's pretty neat that you could do that. How do you think a raid went? Very boring. I'm pretty sure that's how it went. Do you hear his little tappy feet? I could hear it. Alright, let's go in there. Enough of this. Neener, neener, you can't find me, nya nya. Oh god. That's a really nice reflection. I like that. Slime eye! You'll get caught up in that slime eye.
No!
Just kidding, I'm still alive. We're fine. Is that? No, that was my the creme I had put on me. Aha, I did it. That wasn't too bad. That was sort of fun. I mean, it was super pointless getting stuck like that and spamming it, but it was nice. Alrighty, we got the bell! We got Sea Lily's bell. Our third of 7. Not bad. When's the next stream? I have no idea. I may or may not stream in a couple days. I don't know. We'll see. Waterfall! What is it? What is it? It's like... Mush... No.
Chocolate falls like waterfalls.
You know, like...
Pizza. Pizza. Give me pizza. Pizza.
Anyways. You know what I mean. Okay, let's I'm gonna end after going to... I'm gonna go to the claw game one more time. Because I'm sure there's something new. Sea Lily Bell is also weapon of choice. Oh, nice. That's neato. Did not know that. Oh, this is as close as we get. Okay, never mind. I was like, I need to teleport, but I don't. This isn't very speedrun of me. It's not very cash money of you. You lied!
I want pizza. Pizza.
No, technically, anything I do now is after the dungeon. So don't lie to me. I'm being true. You're not. I'm only 100 and whatever away. Can you make another live stream tomorrow? I'm not going to promise anything at all. Just keep an eye out. I might do a stream. Let's see if we can get some monos. If we play perfectly, the max we can get is 50. I'm a god gamer. Can you steal from the shop? You can. I just don't want to. I'm so good. I'm so good at this. Look at how good I am. Man, I am great. I'm just fantastic. Yeah. Cause a few things, like, I'm so good. I'm sorry. This is the one time I feel good at a video game. It's the claw game. I feel so dumb. I am gonna try to get the heart piece though. I want to get that also. I am so good at this game. Holy crap. Ah! Oh my god. Nice. I feel like such a lunatic, but it's nice. Let's leave and come back and maybe we can get more rupees. I don't know if it's an option. Oh yeah, I can. Okay, well let's do it again. Cause I've had a pretty good track record. If I can do it again, I can make some monos. Every time. It's not actually the hard. It's just the physics. You have to hope the physics is okay. We could always like pop out, you know. But I've been fairly lucky with the rupees. Is you steal? No, I'm not gonna steal. All right, it's most efficient. I don't need the shield. I have a shield. It's most efficient to like spam the 50, because every time I get 40 more rupees, if that makes sense. So, yeah. Is you steal? I'm not am steal. You are steal. My god, look at this. So good. It almost fell out that time. Only 100 or so more, yeah. Yeah, it's not that hard. Like, it's 50 every time. Because I have to spend 40 or 10, I get a net gain of 40. But it's not bad. I need 940 total, I believe. So they should get it. This will get to be 951. Look, this guy looks like a total nerd. You talking about the guy with the glasses? I could sort of see that. Glitch video? No, I'd like to make a glitch video. I just have to beat the game first, and also hope there's glitches. But there'll likely be some sort of something about this game. We'll see.
Too serious to accept.
All right, there we go. Now I have the bow, and then that's where I think we'll end it. 50 rupees. My wallet is bursting. Oh god, someone help. I need to stitch it back up.
I have the power. Yeah.
What if I went through? Oh, oh, whoops! I need 980. Awkward. Okay, well let me get a few more rupees. That's awkward. What if I stole it after all that? That'd be so dumb. I was considering for half a second, but I'm not going to. I'm hoping for a 5. It makes it a lot faster, but I know I ignored 2 of them. There you go. See? Cool. Steal the boo! Boo! No! I'm not doing it! I'm not your monkey! I'm not gonna dance, monkey, dance! Alright, well, I'm good. Alright, now we're down to 1 rupee. 1 rupo. Now I'm gonna kill a fox. Whoops. Oh, you can shoot it while jumping? Alright, cool. Well, that was fun. Alright. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you. I think we're gonna end it here. There's a lot more game to play, but I don't want to do it right now. Yeah. So I don't know if I'm gonna stream again on this game. I just want to be completely honest. I only streamed because I felt like it. If I feel like it, I might. Don't hold your breath. But if you're subscribed, it'll show up. Stop spamming. Seriously, it's not funny. You're not being funny. I do have a Discord. You can join the Discord if you want. Link in the description. I do have a video. I have almost finished the script. As soon as that's done, I can get into editing and all that, and hopefully it'll be out in before too long. But I'm gonna end it here. So thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next whatever. Bye.